Good evening and welcome to The Verdict. Death by fire is one of the most excruciating ways to die. But did you know that this is not a rare phenomenon in Kisii County? Anyone suspected of witchcraft is lynched to death. But could this be part of a hidden problem, a camouflage of something bigger and deep-rooted? Well, on tonight's show on The Verdict, we speak about witch hunting in Kisii. We'll be joined by two lawyers, Milanoy Koyet and James Njogu, who will shed more light on the situation in Kisii. We'll also be speaking to the members of the jury. They'll give us their opinion on what they think are the consequences of witch hunting in Kisii. But before that, let's take a look at this heart-wrenching clip about witch hunting in Kisii County. This is Kisii County, a rich and fertile land. In the midst of its abundant resources, witch burning in Kisii is rampant. Statistics indicate that between 1992 and 1994, 300 people were killed in this painful and bizarre manner. But wait a minute, there seems to be an awkward trend here. The bulk of those burnt are women, and not just any woman. It is those whose husbands have died, those who have no sons, and those who have advanced in age and therefore frail. The crime, you may ask? Suspicion of being witches, and suspicion alone will warrant this unlawful killings. When these killings happen, the villagers dismiss it as just another witch burning. But could this be part of a larger problem?
The burning of witches in Kisii could be part of a larger problem. And this could be a camouflage. You are trying to cover up a crime under the guise of calling somebody as being engaged in witchcraft or calling her a witch. But at the end of the day, what you wanted to do is to eliminate that person because of underlying reasons. Is it that almost all of them are old women, aged say 70, 80 and above, in fact from 60 and above? Then the other one, why only widows? Here is a mother, is a woman who's lived up to 60. She doesn't want to pass on. She's continued to 70. She wants to get to 80. And that small portion of land on which she has built that small boma of hers should have been already taken over by the family.
Death came knocking at the door of this family in the wee hours of one night. Fire by death is known to be one of the most painful modes of death. This young boy will forever remain with the images of his father being consumed by the fire. As their house went up in flames, the boy and his mother were lucky enough to escape, but not without severe burns to their bodies.
I was told that my father was drunk when he came home. I was asleep when the fire started. The mattress caught fire and my father was burnt beyond recognition, but I was rescued. At school, I normally put on my cape, but my teachers don't question me for that.
Seeing the fire, my brother Jonas ran to rescue my son and found that he had burnt and was crying. My husband was still inside and the neighbors tried to pull him out, but all in vain. He was burnt beyond recognition. My child was seriously burnt and was rushed to Kisii General Level 5 Hospital.
In actual fact, witchcraft allegations are a convenient disguise for premeditated killings based more on a person's dislike for another, jealousy, envy, greed, rivalry, revenge, and most importantly, property ownership. There is enough evidence to conclude that witch hunting in Kisii has nothing to do with elimination of witches, but rather on land grabbing targeted at the vulnerable who are totally incapable of defending themselves.
We are looking at 300 people dying between 1992 and 1994. I mean, people that have died because they were identified as witches. But that's not the problem. The question is, why are they helpless? People in the society. Why not any other person? Why not any able-bodied person? Who decides that it's only helpless people that become witches for that matter? I think that is what we need to discuss.
Alex, I think that this is quite a delicate matter because on one hand, we all must have seen and noticed that boy whose limbs were totally destroyed because of that fire. Their house, someone just decided that their family had witchcraft networks. Then they set the house on fire. Perhaps it was the dad, or perhaps it was the mom. We see that boy today who says that every other time he has to go out of the home or in school, he has to wear that cap because his head was totally burnt. So on one hand, we have people who suffer because of those blanket condemnations that they are witches. On the other hand, we also have people who really would have been affected because of this witchcraft that exists in the society. But now, the big and the multi-billion-dollar intervention that we need to think about is what needs to happen. How do we make these people who suffer because of this vice comfortable? And how do we also, bring to book these people who are perpetrators?
Let me draw an analogy. It is like telling the fetus that are being aborted to come and adjudicate for themselves. It is very hard, and getting solution to this question is equal hard. But generally what happens in African society is that people who bewitch are known in a certain community, if we can be sincere with ourselves. But how to punish them now becomes hard, because you cannot take those people before a court of law. You cannot have any tangible evidence to adduce. However, their adversity that they perpetuate against their victim is as worse as terrorism. And I think that this spirituality terrorism needs to have maybe a defined intervention where we can have some righteous people like Elijah who can execute 450 Baal prophets, and we agree with it. I think it is a defined question that should be answered from a defined perspective.
I think we should start from this point that we agree that it's not a question of who is to ban or anything. No one should ban. It is not up to people to make the decision of who is supposed to die and who's not supposed to die. We cannot handle that because obviously we have misused. We misuse it. Look at the people who have been killed. Old women, no sons. Why? Kwani there are no wizards? Why is it particularly women of a particular age? So that freedom should not be given to any person. It should be encased in law.
My thinking and my heart is in one particular corner, that if someone has been killed because he or she was bewitched, we have lost a life, we have lost a citizen, we have lost a villager. And since that is a form of killing, someone needs to be subjected to justice somewhere for having perpetrated this. And so for me, really, we need to be thinking of a particular way of now identifying these witches and making sure that they are brought to book. Because there are some communities today in this country or even out of this country that if you go to school, become elite a bit, become wealthy a bit, you cannot go back to the village because you have fears of being bewitched. Others have to travel overnight. Others have to get to the village in the night. They have to disguise themselves dressed in tatters because they have fears that they will be bewitched in the village.
Whether we are looking at it from the Bible times or in just the traditional way, even when we, in Kenya, for instance, the African society had got their tradition in which certain people were seen to possess certain spiritual powers. In the Bible, witches too are mentioned and they are there. So what we have to appreciate is that witchcraft is there. It has got a negative effect on the society. And we have to accept as Kenyans that we have not legalized a way in which they should be dealt with. So what we should look at here, what we should look at, especially the legal experts, should look at a way in which this thing can be dealt with. Interestingly, however, spiritual things cannot be looked at and dealt with physically.
What I can say is that we should stop killing innocent people, but those who do kill should have a penalty.
How do you decide? How do you know they are innocent?
You've said innocent people should not be killed. Yeah. What if they're actually guilty? Should they be killed?
If they're guilty,
yes,
they should be penalized in a manner that is going to... Now this is the question I'm posing back to you. Because we have the laws of the land, which prohibits us from killing, which prohibits us from taking life.
Killing but sometimes, whether it is that spiritual terrorism
should be counteracted as terrorism, and we do like our general said, that we just arrange the meeting with the creator. We have nothing else we can do.
No, I think it is the role of the law to standardize all things. If it is a menace to all people, then the law should address it. And I agree with you, yes, it is not the same in each community. So what should happen, each community should sit down and write down what exactly they have experienced, what exactly their view is. Then a general committee of sorts should just come and sit down and create a law against it. Because if it's something that affects the people, it's the law that's supposed to deal with that, not people. It's not us.
What the government should address is not actually witchcraft as it were, but the reason behind it, the matter of property, the matter of resource distribution and all that, so that there are no people who are so much endowed while others are really living below the poverty line.
Can we be able to have a parameter in those villages, a council of elders or something of that nature, that determines that for this reason or another reason, this person qualifies to be a witch or whatever, and this is the way to deal with them, rather than leaving it to the community?
And all of us have appreciated that it is very complicated. The only thing I keep asking myself, does witchcraft even really exist in the first place?
Did you know that among the Kenyan laws there exists a Witchcraft Act? It is Chapter 67 of the Laws of Kenya. This 2-page act outlaws all practices of witchcraft. There may be need to, however, amend the said act as it was enacted in 1925. If you didn't know, now you know.
Welcome back to The Verdict. We are still speaking about witch hunting in Kisii. And joining us now to give us their legal opinion are our lawyers, Milanoy Koyet, who is an advocate of the High Court, and she works with the organization of Coalition on Violence Against Women. Thank you, Milanoy, for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Also joining us is James Njogu, who is an advocate of the High Court as well, and he's a pro bono advocate with the same organization. Thank you, James, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Milanoy, let me start with you. The members of the jury were able to watch the clips that we got courtesy of Kovao, so thank you so much. And they were very surprised at the extent to which people would go towards banning of witches. You were actually there in Kisii. Yes. Tell us about your experience. What was it like?
It was a very informing experience for me because, first of all, I didn't know what we'll go get out there. Yeah. You know, it's the way you go for a story, you go like find the root cause of whatever is happening there. Because for us as Kovao, we felt like that was a form of violence against anyone that what was being done to, you know. Lynching someone to death. When you're saying that they are witches, we actually had to find the underlying cause of all that.
Let me just be a bit ignorant here and ask you, how does a witch look like? Does she look like me? What's the distinction? How would you tell a witch?
First of all,
she looks like me with my hair.
First of all, I met the women who, some of them had been lynched but survived it because they're being said to be witches, you know. Okay. But of course, the story, they clearly told us that they are not witches. You know, they'd say someone fabricated a story, you know, someone fabricated a story. So she's a normal human being like any of us. So, and the fact that she said she's not a witch, so, you know, I don't know how witches
you can't really tell by just looking at someone.
Exactly.
You've mentioned offset, there's a Witchcraft Act.
Yes.
That sounds ridiculous.
Yes.
Tell me about that act. What are the contents of that act?
There's actually a Witchcraft Act, Cap 67.
Really?
Yes. And it clearly stipulates that if someone, it provides for situations where someone can be charged in a court of law. It provides for very clear situations. If you're in possession of anything that could say you're a witch, or circumstances, you know, it even gives a charge for someone if you accuse someone or threaten someone as a witch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. James, you were saying that this act is very old.
Yes, it's a very old piece of legislation. It came in existence in 1925.
And we still use it in 2013.
It's still part of our laws as we speak. It's still part of our laws. And it's a very small piece of legislation of 9 sections. And it provides for instances whereby if anybody is suspected to be a witch, they're supposed to be taken through the criminal justice system. And also anybody who is suspected to have or to be practicing in witchcraft should be taken through the entire system. So one, it outlaws a person who unlawfully or falsely accuse another person of being a witch, or one who is known to practice witchcraft, and all our penal laws read in totality.
But then thinking about it like this, I'm not saying that people should take the law into their own hands and actually lynch people they suspect of witchcraft, but we're talking about a law that was passed in 1920 something.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's outdated. So when I take the law in my own hands, is that justified?
I think it is totally not justified because, for one,
even if I have the proof that
yes,
this person is a witch.
Yes, even though you have the proof, then I think let the law take its course. You know, because again, if you go lynching someone, that's another violation under the law. You know, even our constitution is extremely clear. Article 29 talks about freedom and security of the person. Freedom from all forms of violence, either public or private, and even from any form of torture from anyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to know about when people are lynched in Kisii, for instance, and now clearly they're dead. Does a family of these individuals go to court? Do they seek this, or is it just a very community-based kind of dispute resolution mechanism? What happens?
I'd say it's really a community-based resolution mechanism because in all the areas, all the homesteads we went to, I tried to actually ask, did anyone report to the police? Even the chiefs themselves know about it, you know, police know about it, but they always say it's like nothing is ever done, nothing happens, no one is arrested. When I talked to one of the policemen, what they actually said was they were like a gang. You know, it's not one person who's coming to lynch you and burn you. They're like a whole community of persons. And of course, no one will say it's him or her. Everyone will go silent. That was the justification from the police. Like, it's a gang thing, so how do you isolate one person? It's him. And for you to actually get a witness, you know, no witness at all.
Okay. James, an underlying principle in criminal law is proving beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes.
How is it possible in a court of law to prove beyond reasonable doubt? What evidence must be adduced by a person who's alleging that so-and-so is a witch? Should I bring a broom, a chicken? What do I do?
The correct mechanism will be through the criminal justice system, whereby a person makes a report to the investigative agencies, in this case being the police, and they follow through the process of proving that this person is engaging in acts known to be witchcraft as defined in that piece of legislation.
Okay.
Yes.
So how would the court process look like?
Well, the court process begins at the stage of investigations.
Yes.
Somebody makes a report to the police, either of suspecting one of being a witch, or somebody makes a false statement accusing another person of being a witch. The police carry out the investigations to ascertain indeed whether this person suspected to be of witchcraft has engaged in those acts. Once the police carry out the investigation and the police file is complete, the file is placed before a magistrate.
Okay.
And the accused person is brought before a court of law to answer to the charges. Therefore, thereafter, witnesses are called to testify as to whether this person who is suspected to be a witch indeed engaged in those acts of witchcraft and sorcery.
So we're speaking about witchcraft in Kisii. It was a laughable topic when I first heard about it, but now it's clearly a very serious one. We're joined by our lawyers. They're giving us their 2 cents on that topic. Do you have anything to say? You can SMS us on the numbers on your screen, and the verdict returns after this break.
There's an issue to that because most of our women and girls, they don't know that they have that right to own own property, or even to claim a share from their parents or their husbands, or from whoever is sharing property with them. By now, or until today, as we are talking now, I've not seen anybody who has been brought to book or even convicted.
You can even have differences with your own child, a male child especially. You know that male child in our community are the people who are eligible to inherit. That is what they believe as the Abagusi people. Now, these male children being the people who are inheriting the properties, they feel that if I chase this girl from home or if I kill my mother, I'll be able to own this property. So sometimes even your own child can accuse you as a witch.
Welcome back to The Verdict. So you may have watched Harry Potter and you've thought that witches and wizards are just fictional. Well, they're not really. And joining us here to give us their legal opinion on witch hunting in Kisii is Milanoy Koyet from Kovao and James Njogu from Kovao as well, a pro bono advocate. So Mila, you told us about international conventions.
Yes.
And you've surprised me during the break telling me that it's not only in Kenya.
Yes.
That witches are banned all over the world. Tell me about that.
there are actually other countries, even in Africa, where there's banning of witches, and that's why even in the Convention Against Torture, you know, it's outlawed, you know, any form of violence. And it's very clear, it's not only Kenya where there's banning of witches, actually other countries, there's also been stories of lynching of persons supposedly to be witches. Yeah, and also as signatories to the Convention Against Torture, sometime this year we were able to submit as several civil society organizations because, you know, government also submits their own paper on what they have done in terms of ensuring that there's no torture in our country. Even us as civil society submit our own paper in terms of what's happening in the country. So we gave our input on what's happening in Kisii, and the Committee Against Torture actually gave a recommendation to the states and stated that there should be proper investigation and prosecution of all persons who are committing such acts of lynching of witches, and actually recommended for the amendment of the Witchcraft Act.
Wow,
yes.
It's about time, 1920-something.
Yeah.
That's a very outdated piece of legislation. And do you think by virtue of submitting the report that you did, there will be any changes on the ground?
I think there will, because like in October, you know, the committee actually comes to assess what the state has done.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometime in October, they'll actually be in Kenya visiting the various ministries to actually just see what they have done. Because you see, once they submitted the paper, they give their recommendations. And when they come, now they'll just be coming to check on what has been happening. Yeah, in terms of the recommendations they give.
Okay, okay. So the clip that we have been watching about lynching of witches in Kisii was courtesy of Kovao. And it was very interesting to see the twist that Kovao had, because what the clip was purporting was that lynching of witches in Kisii is rampant, but then it's just a disguise for a deeper rooted problem. So James, tell us about that rooted problem that you are presuming from the clip that we just watched.
That is very true. From the clip we've just watched, you'll see that most people who are suspected to be witches are the old widows or the grandmothers. Therefore, who are being suspected to be witches and therefore are being lynched. The underlying problem or the underlying feature is the issue of land ownership. And we know land ownership in the entire country is a very emotive issue, whereby people are trying to eliminate others, witches, and culturally, basically women were not supposed to own property or to inherit property from after their husbands are deceased. But as we all know that the Constitution provides for the right of ownership of property of all persons. Therefore, the issue of land ownership is the one, and fight for the meager resources of land ownership, and considering that the land has been fragmented to very tiny portions. That's what really informs people to crowd and label other people witches, with a view of eliminating them and taking over their property.
Okay,
yes.
So let me get this straight. In a nutshell, you're saying that a person may not necessarily be a witch, but because they have a piece of property that they own, people will frame them and call them witches and fight for their lynching so that they may get their property. Is that what you're saying?
That is precisely so. And most likely it's whereby the person is known to be elderly, a widow, the helpless, whereby you cannot be in a position to defend yourself.
Milanoy, there's definitely a link between perhaps property and witchcraft, or poverty and witchcraft.
I'd say, of course, poverty is also the issue, because when you look at Kisii, the land, as James was saying, is fragmented into small bits. The land
Kisii is so rich.
It's very rich, but the portions of land they own are they're tiny. Yeah, they're very tiny, small pieces of land. If we've even been told by people on the ground, sometimes it's even your son, because you see, if you're let's say if you're a widow, and some of maybe your grandmother has lived on, because you see, like one of the clips, you'll see a lady who's really, really old. They think she's not going or something, you know, and so the land is really small, and you see, maybe you can't get your own piece of land till she's dead, you know. So it has happened, and you see, of course, they disguise it as the way it was being said. They drop notes, write people's names. You're supposedly a witch, or they say something happens. If something happens to a child, they say that old lady must have done this to this child, you know.
Speaking of that, why burn? There's so many ways of killing someone.
Yeah,
why would they resort to just burning?
I don't know, but you know, the way the earlier, I'd presume, the way it said earlier, the only way maybe to kill a witch is by burning her. Yeah,
and maybe to add on that, culturally, burning is very ruthless, and witches being
And also
suspected,
effective.
and very effective,
Yeah.
and a very ruthless way of killing somebody or eliminating somebody.
Okay.
Yes.
So James, let's speak solutions. What possible solutions can we have? Perhaps in terms of structure and systems, legislation, court processes, investigation by police. What are the loopholes that we can seal, that you can see in the whole entire process?
First of all, people should desist taking the law into their own hands. If you're suspected or if you suspect somebody to engage in witchcraft, there are avenues that one should follow or one can follow. Follow the criminal justice system. Let us test this law. How effective is it? Like we had already said, it's an African problem, and this being a very old piece of legislation that connotes the fact that witchcraft or witches or the practice of witchcraft has been practiced for quite some time.
Yeah.
So in the process, I think initially, first of all, we should give the law a chance. Let us protect and safeguard the right to life, first of all, and try and use the legal process to try and deal with this problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What about investigation? Because I know so many things get lost in the investigatory process. Do you think things should be tightened? You know, police should do their job much better?
Very true. You know, any case is as good as the investigations that have been conducted.
True.
Therefore, I believe the people and the police should work hand in hand to ensure that this problem is eliminated once and for all.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate in this day and age to see that we are labeling our elderly people, senior citizens who are supposed to be enjoying or relaxing in their sunset years as witches, just so that we can eliminate them and take over the property or whatever little they have left behind. I believe this is a matter.
Very lazy generation, don't you think?
Very true, very
I
true.
just want to get rid of them to take their property.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe if we allow or we give that a chance, then we'll be moving in the right direction.
Okay.
Yes.
Milanoy, as we wind up, tell us about a little bit about Kovau's relation with the entire witch hunting in Kisii. What are you guys proactively doing to ensure that women do not undergo such violence? Because you've said that women are the major culprits.
Yes. As Kovau, our focus is in working towards eliminating all forms of violence against women.
Yeah.
And that's why we wanted to do the documentary to highlight what's happening, for us to ensure that it's out there and solutions are found. First of all, we want to take it to all the places in Kisii. You know, we've been airing it and ensuring that people know what's really happening on the ground so that you can find solutions. Because you see, even when you go to the police, like years back, even on the TV, it was highlighted when like a couple of witches were burnt together. They're like 10. They were burnt. There was video evidence. You know, you could see the faces of people who were burning them. But was there anything done? You know, that's the thing. That's why our call is to ensure that all forms of violence against women are eradicated. We don't want to look at people being said they're witches or not. Nevertheless, no one should be subjected to any form of violence, and that's our standards, Kovau.
Okay. Thank you so much, Milanoy from Kovau. Thank you so much, James, an advocate, pro bono advocate from Kovau. Thank you so much for joining us on The Verdict. So there you've had it. Witchcraft in Kisii exists, and it's a disguise, according to them, for underlying issues that they've been able to articulate on the show. Do you have any comments, any queries? We'd love to hear from you. You can SMS us to the numbers on your screen. If you also have any real-life legal case that you would like us to tackle and air on our show, you can also get in touch with us by SMSing the numbers on your screen. So that's all we had lined up for you tonight on the show. Until next week, good night and God bless.